Hey, welcome to another episode of the Kwak Brothers podcast. This is Sam Kwak, one of the Kwak Brothers, real estate investor and the author of the book Fire Your Boss. And today's episode topic is about fix and flip analysis. So we're going to talk about how to analyze a fix and flip deal. And I also have a treat for you guys. At the end of the podcast, I'm going to share with you guys a story. I like to call it the 3-Unit Prostitute Story. So it's a very interesting story. You guys should stick around. That's a treat. That's the dessert. So for the main entree, I'm going to give you guys how to analyze a fix and flip deal. So as I'm speaking to you guys right now, in my given market, in my local market, the Chicago suburban area, it's not the hottest time for a fix and flip right now, simply because there's a bit of an inventory issue, meaning there's lack of supply of potential fix and flip properties that are there. You can structure it in a way that you can buy low and sell it lower than the market value, meaning we want to buy extremely low, right? Put some repairs into it. In about a month or two, we should be able to flip it for slightly lower price than the market. If we priced it at the market value, yes, it's going to sell, but it's not going to sell as quickly as you want. So the best way to do it is buy extremely low and sell low again, right? That's my philosophy when it comes to fix and flip. We want to be able to turn properties fast, right? The issue right now with my market is that there are properties that you can buy, still low price, but the problem is the margin's really, really small. And the repair time and the cost is exceedingly high. So the fix and flip model doesn't work right now in my given market. I can change tomorrow, it can change next week, it can change next month. Who knows? But when it does change, we need to prepare ourselves with the knowledge that we need to become successful in real estate investing and, of course, fix and flip. Now, this fix and flip right now is totally different. I mean, the market for fix and flip right now may be ripe in certain areas like California, right? East Coast, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. These are areas that I would say are pretty good for fix and flip market. Southern states, right? Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi. I believe there's a really good market, but I think right now the biggest market in my opinion is Texas, Georgia, of course, and we're kind of getting the tail end of Florida. Florida is still nice, but I can see it kind of winding down because Florida was always a boom. I can definitely see it being a wind down kind of stage we're seeing here. But who knows? I could be totally wrong. Right now, the market analysis for me, what I'm seeing nationwide, it appears that way. So either way, there's always going to be a timing for fix and flip, and we want to be ready and we want to prepare. Okay. So I'm sipping on coffee here as we're speaking here. So fix and flip. The whole idea is that we have to start with ARV, after repair value. If you don't have the ARV, you're going to screw the whole entire deal up, okay? So the ARV, we need to come up with this figure. ARV could also be substituted as fair market value when it's done repairing. So ARV, we need to figure out how where we get that number, right? Some of you guys who are listening may already know, but I want to give you guys some extra tip. For those who don't know what ARV is, perfect. This is going to be a great opportunity for you to learn. So how to calculate ARV is basically, there are a couple ways to do it, but I think this is my favorite way, and for this podcast, we'll stick with that, is we have to find 3 or more alike properties that are within the area of our property that we're working on. So if we're working on 123 Main Street, we want to look for 3 properties that are just like 123 Main Street within the neighborhood that have been sold in the last 6 months or sooner. Now, of course, the sooner it has sold, the better. But sometimes some neighborhoods may not give you that kind of data just yet. So you're looking for 3 or more. Of course, the more the merrier. You want to look for similar square footage. Okay, if 123 Main Street is 1,200 square feet, we want to look for other 3 properties that are very close to 1,200 square feet. We want to look for similar bedroom and bathroom counts, right? If it's a 3-bedroom and 2-bath, then we only want to look at properties that obviously are 3-bedroom and 2-bath. We also want to look at the type of the property, right? Is it a bungalow, a raised ranch? Is it Southwest style, Art Deco? What is it, right? Usually Art Deco is very, very rare. A lot of ranch and raised ranch, right? Split level. bungalows, right? Those are pretty common in my area, in the Midwest states. So you want to make sure you factor that in as well. You also want to factor in garage space, right? 2-car garage, 1-car garage. That can impact the price of the property, right? The value of the property. You also want to look at how updated, right, the 3 properties were. You want to look at the properties that were sold retail, meaning you want to look at the properties that were sold to the person that is going to live there, and that is the final customer. It's not being sold to another investor. It's not being sold to a wholesaler, and it's not being sold to a junkyard investor, investor who just buys junk properties. You want to see those properties that were sold even after it was repaired, right? That's huge. Okay. So we want to look at those characteristics. We also want to look at the characteristics of the amenities, meaning are there swimming pools in the backyard? Are there a shed? How big is the backyard? How big is the lot size? Also, another big factor thing is this is something that I haven't talked about yet in my last blog post was the age of the property, right? We don't want to compare a property that was built in 1920s to 1980s, right? Obviously, there's going to be a huge maintenance differentiation, right? You're going to have a lot more maintenance in the property that was built in 1920s versus the 1980s. So to calculate the ARV, what we're doing is we're taking the 3 properties that were sold in the area in the last 6 months with alike characteristics, and we're going to average them out, right? And you always want to take the lower average. Don't take the higher average, because a lot of people like to kind of fool themselves and say, well, the highest ARV I see is $250,000, so I'm going to take that number. If your lowest average ARV is $220,000, take $220,000, right? You want to be conservative, as much conservative into your figure as possible. You want to add much conservativeness into your figures when you're calculating it, because who knows, something might go wrong. You may have to expend a little more cash or budget into repairs, right? You want to make sure you're safe, right? You don't want to ever come to a situation, you're breaking even or you are losing money, right? That will be not a good situation to be in. So always be conservative. Now, the next layer, once we figure out the ARV, the next layer is we need to figure out the repair cost, right? How much does the property need in terms of repair? Now, this is something that a lot of people butcher sometimes because they over repair or under repair, meaning if you're in a neighborhood that requires top-notch repair and rehab, then yeah, you wanna bring the top-notch repair and rehab that kind of meets the standards of the given market, right? If there's if all the properties in your area are granite countertop, right? Stainless steel refrigerator and stainless steel appliances, vinyl flooring, right? But if it's got all these fancy upscale features, then yeah, you're gonna have to add those things as well. Now, if you're in a market where where stainless steel is not really a thing, right? It's just white or black refrigerator appliance. You're looking at laminate countertop, right? Cheap carpet and cheap laminate flooring. Then yeah, you want to fit in that standard. Don't over repair, because you're gonna spend more money and not get your money back, or not at least make the money that you think you would. Okay, so you want to repair to the point where it fits the standards, right? If you're in a C class or D class neighborhood, repair it to the C class and D class level. If you're in an A class or B class level, then yeah, absolutely, you definitely want to get into that standard, or otherwise your property will not sell. Okay, so that's very important. So you got your ARV. So if you're writing this on paper, if you're listening to this again, down the road, you might be working out, you might be driving, I don't know. But later down the road, what you want to do is you want to sketch this out. So start with the ARV, subtract the repair, right? Whatever the repair amount is, could be 50,000, 40,000, who knows, right? The best way to get the repair figure is to have a contractor give you a bid, right? Submit a quote and see how much it's going to cost for them to fix it, right? The next thing you want to figure out is the holding cost, right? You gotta find out how long will this project take, right? Typically, I always factor in 6 months of holding, meaning I'm gonna always figure that it's gonna take about 6 months to repair it. Even if I think it's gonna take a month or two, I'm going to be conservative, right? By saying I'm going to hold it for 6 months. Now, if it's a complete gut rehab, then of course 12 months will be very appropriate. But if you're doing something that's, mid-size cosmetic rehab, then yeah, you want to consider doing just maybe 6 months. That also says you have to factor in taxes that you may have to pay within those 6 months. You may have to factor in the insurance cost, right? You want to insure the property even while it's getting flipped or fixed. You want to factor in the utilities, right? Water. You want to factor in the electricity, right? Those are all important things to factor in. So all these things that are ongoing costs, even while you're the owner of the property, you want to make sure you're factoring those in. The next thing you want to factor in is buying costs, right? When you buy the property, you're gonna have to pay the attorney, right? The title company. You may have to factor in those closing costs when you're buying it. Of course, I can't give you a straight number or strict figures, but usually most attorneys will help you with that and figure out what the cost is going to be. And this may also come with experience. Like here in Chicago, I know my buying costs could be anywhere between 1% to 2% of the purchase price. So again, it all differentiates wherever you are in your market area. The next thing you want to factor in is the selling cost, right? Usually my selling costs, I usually factor in 8% of the selling cost, the selling price. So if I'm selling it for $220,000, 8% of $220,000, I'm automatically think, okay, this is what it's going to take to sell the property using a real estate agent, closing costs, transfer taxes, title insurance, the whole 9 yards. Okay. Next thing I want to factor in is hedge cost. Now, hedge cost is basically we're saving a little bit of cost in there just in case we discover something in the process where we didn't anticipate. Right, this is like unforeseeable costs that we didn't anticipate. So we're gonna put in, I'm gonna factor in usually 5 to 7% of hedge cost in there of the ARV. So our ARV is $220,000. We're gonna take 5% of $220,000 and call that as a hedge cost, just in case, if for ungodly reason we see something that happens, we need to be able to cover it. Right, very important. So we got the repairs, selling costs, buying costs, selling costs, the hedge. We also want to factor in your profit, right? Subtract however much money you want to make. If it's $30,000, $40,000, subtract that out. So when you subtract all these figures, right? Repairs, buying costs, selling costs, hedge cost, your profit, the final figure you're seeing is your maximum bid, your maximum offer. You do not want to offer more than what the figure that you're seeing in front of you. So if the final figure is, let's say, $80,000, and that's your maximum offer, then you do not want to offer that person $82,000, right? Clearly, that's not the logic here. So you want to start your negotiation at even a lower number. You want to start your negotiation at maybe $69,000 or $70,000. I will make it $69,000, right? Start from there, and then the seller says, yeah, well, it's not. I don't think that's what I want to sell it for. Then you counter, right? You'd say, okay, how about $72,000? And then the seller counters back $74,000. And then, right? So if you can get it lower than your maximum offer price, awesome. Then you just made more money, right? Because your maximum offer was $80,000. If the seller accepts that $75,000 offer, then you just made $5,000 more. Does that make sense? So when you're negotiating, you want to start lower than your maximum offer. If the offer is exceeding $8,000, you have to back away, guys. Do not do the deal just because you want to do the deal, right? Don't do the deal just to do the deal. That's not a good idea. You want to make money, and backing out a deal is 100 times better than doing a bad deal and getting stuck with a bad deal. Okay, that's very, very important, and I can't emphasize that enough. I've gone through those experiences and trauma. Guys, don't do the deal just so that you can do the deal. Always make sure you know for a fact, 100%, deep down in your heart, that you're gonna make money. Especially if you're using other people's money to do the deal, right? If you're using private capital, private money, or hard money lending, or you're using life insurance money. And guys, you want to have your facts double checked. Cross your T's, dot your I's, right? It's very, very important. Okay, so that's generally how I like to analyze my deal. And if it works great. But always make sure you get your ARV right, because it starts with the ARV. Starts, and then repair, selling, buying. Very, very, very important that you have this analysis all together. All right, guys. So if you guys want to learn more about fix and flip analysis, I do have a blog post. Go to thekwakbrothers.com/blog. Again, that's thekwakbrothers.com/blog, and make sure you go check it out. Okay. All right. So time for the three unit prostitute story. I'm gonna take a sip of coffee real quick because this is gonna be a wild ride that we're gonna go through here. Okay. So this 3-unit prostitute story, it's an actual story. It's a real life story, and I do want to share this story with you guys because there are lessons to be learned from my story, and it is a little bit embarrassing story to tell because I made a lot of rookie mistakes that I shouldn't have. That being said, don't make those mistakes. Right? For those who are listening, do not make this mistake. So this happened back in last May. This is 2017. We're talking about last May. I was in the process of buying a 3-unit, and I had a seller that was offering that I got to check out. So the seller says, well, I'm trying to sell this property, 3-unit. I've been trying to sell for $205,000. I couldn't do it. So I take the seller out to dinner or lunch, and we negotiate the price down to $195, and we basically negotiate for owner financing. For me, negotiating for owner financing isn't too hard anymore. But the fact that here's the issue. I've been working with a mentor, and my mentor told me, make sure before you do any deal, bring the figures to me so I can double check your figure. But at this point, I got a little bit of a big head, right? And said, I'm just gonna do this deal on my own. I'm gonna figure it out, and I can do this, and I'm pretty confident, right? So you guys can obviously tell this is not going the right direction as some common sense may dictate. So I'm basically saying, well, I can do this deal on my own. So I negotiated down. I bought it for $195,000, 15-year amortization. I gave him 10% down. And at the same time, what was happening is that one of my old high school friends, she reached back out to me at this point. We haven't talked in like 6 years. She reaches out to me and says, hey, Sam, I'm having some trouble financially. Could I sit down with you and could you give me some plan? Help me with some ideas. I'm not asking for money, but could you give me some ideas as far as what I need to do, right? I'm like, okay, all right, fine, let's go do lunch, right? So she was saying that her and her friend is at the verge of going homeless because they're not living in a good living situation right now, and they have some family challenges, which it's unfortunate. So to give you guys I guess some pronouns here, right? Let's call my friend Mary, okay? And her friend that they're rooming with, let's call her Sarah. So Mary and Sarah, they're together and living together as roommates, and they're at the verge of being homeless. So of course, I took pity on these guys, and I felt bad that they're going homeless. And these were two young girls that obviously, if they go homeless, they're gonna be in trouble, right? Not good. So it kind of connected, the 3-unit that I'm buying, the second floor unit is going vacant. So keep in mind, second floor unit going vacant. So I said, okay, well, since I'm buying this 3-unit, the second floor is going vacant. I'm gonna go and put these guys in there with some and have them pay rent. Of course, they said they're gonna have a job pretty soon here. So I said, okay, these guys are in trouble. I'm gonna let them in. Happy ending, right? So. I buy the property, of course, without ever mentioning it to my mentor, and do the down payment, and I let the guys in. I let Mary and Sarah move in. They pay the security deposit. They pay the rent. Now, keep in mind, guys, I didn't do any background search, background check. I didn't do any credit check because I knew that their credit was trash. It was gone. It was down the hole, right? So that's not going to be good. I knew they had a job, and I know they told me they could afford it. So I was like, all right, okay, we'll let you in. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Great. So I was very generous to the point where I bought them lunch a couple of times. I bought them dinner a couple of times. I paid them to do some work for me. I did some credit repair help with them. Showed them some stuff to help them relieve their pain with bad credit. Helped them with that. So you guys can see that I was being very generous with with these two girls, and I was trying to help them. Not that I had any special interest with these guys, but generally I'm very, very generous with people who need help, especially homeless people or people who are about to go homeless. So I was trying to be generous as much as possible. So let's continue the story. They move in. About a month goes by after they lived there for a month, and they signed a lease and everything. And I want to make sure you guys are aware that the lease that they signed says that the premises, the apartment, is clean, it's in good condition, and it's in a satisfactory condition where it's acceptable for them to move in. So they move in, they sign the lease, great. About a month goes on. Sarah goes and texts me saying, hey, there's issues with this, and this. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll help you. I'll do my best. Right now, I'm out of cash because I just dumped my whole entire cash flow into doing this down payment. So please bear with me. I'm going to do my best to catch up. Right? So she's continually texting me saying, hey, this is the problem. That's a problem. And one time, at a certain point, it escalated to the point where she said, well, this is, I think, is a code violation. And of course, I looked them up, and they weren't. They're not code violations. I don't know where she was getting this from, but they were not code violations, other than the fact that the smoke detector wasn't working functionally. So I went and bought her a new smoke detector, had my handyman go in and change out the smoke detector. So great. And then a week go by, she comes back and says, I want to break the lease because I wasn't helping them with repairs at all. Keep in mind, the things that she were talking about made it sound like her life was in danger, right? And we're talking about things like the toilet wasn't flushing with full power, meaning water pressure, right? She didn't like the fact that the toilet was flushing really slow, which the toilet was flushing just fine. She didn't like the fact that the kitchen cabinet wasn't working fine. The door didn't open and close the right way. By good God. And she was complaining how the air conditioning, the window unit, wasn't cooling the entire house enough, right? At that point, I'm like, just go buy another air conditioning, for crying out loud, right? So, I do my best to make sure that they're living in a good condition. But what she was making it sound like was that she was gonna die. She was gonna suffer, and die and have, major tragedy, which is none of these are true. And so when she asked me to fix it, I technically had 21 days. Yeah, 21 days to fix it. And which in that case, it was nowhere near within the 21-day mark. But at that point, she was saying, well, I want to break the lease. I want my rent back, the first month's rent back, and I want my security deposit back. Right? At that point, guys, she was there for a month. She lived there for a month. So meaning she used up the entire prepaid rent. And there's no way, in any given fairness, she does not deserve that rent back because she lived there, right? And so it got to a point where she was threatening me with a lawsuit, right? She was like, I'm gonna call my lawyer, and then I'm gonna sue you, right, for being a slumlord or whatever. I'm gonna complain to the city. So, and I'm like, oh my word, this is not going well, right? How did this escalate to this point? So, it was very strange because she was also quoting different laws, and she was quoting codes, and she was coming back to me with very professional wording and language, and I'm like, man, there's no way this girl figured this all out, and within a week or so, even if she was getting represented by an attorney, how did she pay the attorney to represent her, right? So I'm gonna figure out I'm gonna share with you what happened, and I'm gonna continue with the story here. So eventually, I figured, if we're gonna go to court, I'm gonna have to pay my attorney at least $4,000 a retainer. It's gonna cost me like $8,000 to get her out and settle with this lawsuit, right? So I said, all right, fine. Sarah, I'm gonna give you 2 months of free rent, but at the end of 2 months, you have to leave, right? At that point, it was much better than going through a lawsuit and going through pretrial and. And this we're talking about Chicago here. So Chicago tends to be much more tenant friendly than landlord friendly. So my odds are very, very low that I'm gonna be winning this lawsuit, right? There's a better chance that the tenant Sarah is gonna win the lawsuit. So I said, you know what, forget it. I'm gonna let her have 2 months of free rent and let her slide, but she has to move. So she even signed a contract for that, and she said, yes, I agree that I'm gonna move out. Peaceful resolution, right? I'm gonna let her move. I'm gonna let her have 2 months of free rent. No more complaining, no more lawsuit, no more threatening, none of that. Cool. So at this point, I'm like, man, I better talk to my mentor about this because it's not going so well. So of course, I talked to my mentor about it, and my mentor grilled me literally, like not cussed me out, but literally, scolded me for an hour straight, saying how bad this deal was in the first place. The figures didn't work, right? If I stay with this deal, I'm gonna get in trouble, right? So, of course, at that point, I'm like, man, what do I do? So any smart person would say, well, I gotta sell this. So I did. I listed it with my agent. I listed it with my real estate agent, and in 2 weeks, I got it under contract. Keep in mind, I bought it for $195, and we listed it for $215, and we got an offer accepted at $213. So, that worked really, really well. So in 2 weeks, I'm gonna sell it. I'm gonna get rid of it. Great, awesome. I'm gonna get some money back. At that point, it took a lot of emotional toll on me. I had too much headache to deal with this. So I'm like, I'm gonna get rid of this. No more. I'm gonna take this money and invest it elsewhere. So at that point, I was relieved that she was gonna be gone 2 months, and in about 3 weeks we're gonna close. I was very happy about it. Now, one day I got a phone call from my real estate agent, and he said, well, the buyer's attorney called and said there are code violations on the building. And I'm like, what code violation? At the time when I bought it in May and June, there was zero code violation. And even my seller even told me that there weren't, and he certified it and he signed on it. So I said, well, there aren't any, because the seller clearly signed off and said there's no code violations or existing code violations. So I went and checked, right, through the website, Chicago website, and there was 3 code violations that pertain to second floor window, the chimney, and second floor pest issues. So keep in mind, guys, who did I move in on the second floor? Right, Mary and Sarah. So basically, Sarah didn't obviously take my generosity too kindly. She decided to file a complaint against me with the Department of Code or Building Inspections in Chicago, right? And this could have ended peacefully. And I don't know why she had to go out and file a complaint, but she did. And it cost me additional $4,000 to fix the dang thing. Of course, I had the inspector come back and I passed. It was all good. But that was $4,000 that I probably didn't have to spend had she didn't, she decided to end this peacefully. But of course, she had to have the last word by saying, "Oh, I'm going to complain," and screw you, right? So at that point, I was very frustrated. But either way, I'm going to get rid of the property. No more of this problem. Now, here's where it gets really fun and interesting. This is where the prostitution part comes in. So Mary, of course, throughout this process, she was basically taking my side. She was getting tired of Sarah, because Sarah and Mary didn't have a good relationship while they were staying. Of course, Mary wanted to make sure she was being fair with me, and she was taking my side. She was basically saying, well, Sarah's not being a good lady. She was basically calling her, Mary was calling Sarah a B word, which I'm not going to say in the podcast, of course. So Mary does not like Sarah to this day, I believe, and they don't hang out anymore. But Mary is taking my side, and Mary basically eventually told me that Sarah has been sleeping around with men for money. Okay, so now she's a prostitute. Now, and to give you just a little bit more information about Sarah, back then she used to work as a go-go dancer, and I thought that was the extent of her crazy, dancing whatever life. Okay, she's wild lady. I thought that was the extent of her, and Mary told me, well, she goes around, sleeps with these guys, and makes money by sleeping with them. Now, of course, I can see how this goes. She's a go-go dancer, and she likes to take her clothes off and dance. So I wasn't surprised. I was not surprised. But what kind of made me feel, I just kind of had this, moment where I found out Mary basically told me that she was also sleeping with a real estate broker in Chicago area, very, very high profile real estate broker. And I kind of added two to two together, and I realized that this real estate broker that she was sleeping with for money, this broker was basically coaching Sarah what to say and how to put me in trouble, basically, right? Because how did she know how to file a complaint, right, with the city? How did she know how to quote all these laws and codes and all these things? And she sounded very professional in her mails and emails that she was sending me to, basically threatening me with a lawsuit. So she sounded very sophisticated, which I'm not saying she's not, but at that time she was not. So this broker real estate broker was coaching her how to do it. Basically, he was sleeping with her and he was paying her money and all these crazy mess. So of course, I'm not the type to take up on revenge or retaliate, but I think you and I both know that to protect her, even her well-being, Sarah's well-being, it'll be a good thing that she gets locked up for a week for her to learn a lesson to not sleep with men for money, because that's illegal and that's not right and that's not moral. So that being said, that's my 3-unit prostitute story. She caused enough trouble for me already. I did go ahead and tip her off to the police. I don't know what happened to her. My mentor basically says also call the real estate broker's office and mention this to them. And I don't know if I want to go that far, but like I said, I'm not the type of person that would retaliate, and I don't believe in revenge. That's not the type of person I am. But I would say though, for Sarah's own health and well-being and protection, and for her future, it might be wise that she at least sees counseling. She goes to jail and she sees a day where she realizes she's making a mistake by sleeping with men for money. So that's important. So betterment for the society is basically what I'm saying. So guys, so today's podcast, that's pretty much it. I shared you a story. So the moral story with that is a couple of things. I want to make sure you guys learn a lesson from that story that I had, the mistake that I made. Number one, always work with a mentor. Guys, do not try to do deals alone. Okay, you're gonna end up like me, having to deal with this headache and emotional roller coaster. So work with a mentor. Work with a mentor. Repeat after me. Work with a mentor. Okay, very, very important. Number two is never put your own friends, family, religious church member, right? Synagogue member, right? Mosque member. I don't know. Your fellow brothers and sisters, your friends, family. Do not put any of those members in your property as tenants. Okay, do not put your friends into your tenants. Do not put your family member as a tenant. Do not put your church member, synagogue, mosque, religious gathering member into your rental property. Do not do it. Okay, you can see what happened. They start to take the fact that you are their friend and family member, and they take it granted. And they see you as a person that they can just get away with things and complain and not pay rent, and right, because they think you love them, and they'll let you slide by not paying rent, which is not good. So don't do it, right? It'll ruin the relationship. It's not good. Third thing is know your rights and laws, right? If you don't know it, if you don't know your Landlord Tenant Act in your given county or municipality, it's very important. You need to know your codes. You need to know all the laws that pertaining to protecting your rights as a landlord. Okay, learn more about the story. I do have a article that I wrote on my blog, thekwakbrothers.com/blog. I'll give you even more details. There's more details of that story in the blog post. Go check it out. Go read it. You'll love it. So don't get in trouble like me, right? Don't get into a situation where you're hurting yourself, right? Learn from my mistakes, and of course, I'm never gonna make that mistake ever again. It's a mistake that I learned, and hopefully, it's gonna strengthen your business as well. So, guys, thanks for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. Again, for those who didn't know, my brother and I have a YouTube channel. Let's go to we have a ton of videos and training there. So go to youtube.com/the Kwak Brothers, and that's again youtube.com/the Kwak Brothers. Check out some of our videos, very helpful. A lot of people have been benefited by it, so go check it out. Thanks guys for tuning in for this week's podcast, the Kwak Brothers podcast. I will see you guys in the next week's podcast, and guys, go make some money. All right, take care guys.